3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, how we doing, Mr. Fiscus? Do we call you Mr. Fiscus still, or at what age are we allowed to call you just Aric?
According to me, it's fine now. But,
it feels funny though, right?
Yeah.
Like when you know, I've always referred to you as Mr. Fiscus, but now we're supposed to be quote unquote adults, so that gives us, I guess, the liberty to call former teachers by their first name.
again, I would say so. We're in the same peer group now. So. First name basis is fine.
I just went to a birthday party with Miss Barnett, and the whole time I had to keep reminding myself I can call her Tiffany.
And I taught her, so I mean, it's a lot of names I wanted to say to different people, but or I called her Miss Barnett when she was my student, so it's kind of odd, and little opposite thing there, but
That's funny. So we listened to a book called Manipulation, Proven Manipulation Techniques to Influence with Meditation, Persuasion, and Cognitive Behavior Therapy. That title rolls right off the tongue. So I think we'll get into maybe some of that topic a little bit later on, but I would rather kind of go to dessert first, if we don't mind. I want to talk to you about baseball.
okay.
If that's okay. So you were our coach, mine and Brad's coach, for 3 years in high school, but you coached at Lynchburg for 14 years, correct?
Well, 15. I was JV coach my first year.
Oh, okay. All right. So 14 as a varsity coach. Gotcha.
What year was it, 97 or?
My first year was 96 as a JV coach, but
97.
97 was my first year as varsity coach.
So you started with Joe Wells, right?
I did. Well, Joe was a junior when I...
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I was looking at some of his stats because we were too young to remember him, but some of his stats.
That hurts me, by the way. I just want you to know that. I'll be hurt several times during this podcast, but there's my first injury right there. Too young to remember. I have Joe Wells's kid in my school now.
Really?
And principal at Fayetteville Elementary. And because I have about 10 former students who are parents now, which is, again, an odd juxtaposition there. But
is his kid a baseball player too? I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, he has a lunchbox with a baseball
There you go.
thing on it. So, yeah, I believe he is. I hear he's a pretty good athlete. So
There you go. It's in the blood.
Well, exactly. He gets it honestly from both sides. I mean, Kelly was a good athlete too.
Yeah, I seen that he batted over 500 his senior year.
Joe did.
Yeah, 26 runs or something like that, 27 RBIs and 5 home runs.
You and he went into the Lynchburg Hall of Fame on the same night.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so I could tell, I was in attendance to watch you give your speech, and I could tell that there was probably more on your mind that you would have liked to have gotten to, but with the constraints of time.
Yeah. The Payne Valley people didn't want to hear me.
They didn't want to get the full lecture. So now you get that opportunity.
Well, I did put out a big, long Facebook post.
Right, yeah.
Which is really what I wanted to say, but I could feel my crowd. Again, we get back to that psychology thing that people behind me didn't want to hear me, so we'll just move on. But one of the greatest nights of my life and one of the worst nights of my life, in that I don't like that whole being in the center of things. You know, standing in the middle of the basketball court and everyone's staring at you. I don't care much for that. I had a lot of people who made me who I am, really. I just... I had a lot of great players. Can't be a coach without great players.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, always will be grateful for that.
Do you miss it? Or I know you coached some other lower level teams at this point, but do you miss that level and the high school competitiveness? Or?
Well, the last 2 years I was volunteer assistant coach. It was really my dream job. It's all baseball. It's all, and again, we'll keep coming back to the psychology thing, because one of the crosses I bear in life is I psychoanalyze everybody I meet, including myself, all the time. I guess that's why I taught psychology all those years. It just interests me. But last year we won the league. My son was a senior. He graduated last year. And I was really able to get into the psychology of teams. Vince was the head coach. If anyone had a problem with anything, I just go talk to him. It's not my deal. But worked with the pitchers and catchers, and again, really got into the psychology of things and getting into kids' ears. And I don't know if you call it. There's a fine line between motivation and manipulation. Again, it kind of rolls back to that whole thing we'll get into in a minute. But again, my dream job. Now I'm helping with James Flowers, another former player of mine. He has a group of 7th graders. He has a travel team, and I'm helping with them.
Great. So you stay active in the capacity without, I guess, having the full responsibility of a head coach.
You don't take as much of the blame anyway.
Well, no, I won't take any blame.
Yeah, that does sound like the dream job. I help coach my son's team, and I'm not even really an assistant, but that's where I want to be. I don't want to get the parents involved coming to me and stuff. But it's nice to be able to still work with the kids.
Yeah. I think the psychology portion makes you uniquely qualified as a coach, because it isn't until, I still haven't, I don't have a youngster that's, playing any sports at this point. Hopefully in the future I do. But just with talking, with him and other friends that have tried to, take on the role of coach, they quickly learn how much psychology is actually involved with the act of coaching, and not just with your players, but with other coaches and what's going on with them, what's going on with parents, dealing with playing time versus kids' skill. There's a lot going on than just teach kids how to play baseball.
There's a lot of moving parts there. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think overall, and this goes into not just coaching, but leadership in general. I'm a principal, of course. I lead kids, I lead adults. There's a lot of moving parts there. But first and foremost, I think if you're honest with people, and there are a lot of players I had to tell, you're probably not going to see the field a lot. If you want to be a part of things, that's great. Love to have you around. Mm-hmm. And I think part of what helped me was I wasn't a real good player. You get some coaches who are very good players, and they don't really succeed very well because they assume people know how to do things, and people are just kind of motivated to do things like they were, which is not always the case.
So you can see things from their perspective,
Oh yeah, I absolutely can. And I always, if I catered to anybody, it was that kid. It wasn't the star. It was this kid on the end of the bench down here who, not that I was a terrible player, but, this kid down here who's here because he wants to be here. He's not going to get a whole lot of return out of it from the game standpoint. Mm-hmm. He'd be involved in practice and that sort of thing. But, why do you want to be a part of the group? It's more of a social thing. Yeah. And you have to place a value on what that kid does in addition to what the all-star does and everyone in between.
That's where I find it kind of difficult, is because you have to try to treat everyone fairly, but you also have to treat them differently because every kid's different personality or skill set. And that's really hard, especially, I don't know, it might be harder with high school kids because they think they know everything, but with little kids, sometimes it's hard to even get the personality out of them.
Yeah. And there's an old saying, and it rings very true. The most unequal thing is the equal treatment of unequals.
Say that again. I need to break that down.
The most unequal thing is the equal treatment of unequals. Mm. So people talk about fair and just, but this is really a concept, like you said. People are different. Everyone's different.
Yeah.
So what's fair to this one may not necessarily be fair to that one. And in education, the big word now is equity. Mm-hmm. Giving everyone an equal opportunity to succeed. And whatever their definition of success is, like I said, this kid on the bench, down at the end of the bench, his definition of success is, hey, I'm in a varsity uniform, I'm on this team, and I have a a stake in what goes on here.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not necessarily be me making a play in the field, but there's something I do here. If nothing else, maybe it's just keeping everyone else loose. Hey, I'm the social butterfly. Guy strikes out, he's in a bad mood. I'm going to go pick him back up.
Mm-hmm.
That's very valuable too. So putting a value on that and making that kid feel as though they're just as valuable as everybody else, really, again, is somewhat of a juggling act.
Yeah.
What's the first thing, like you get a brand new team, right? Say you have, the previous year you had 8 seniors graduate. And now you have a few returning guys, but overall you have basically a blank sheet, so to say.
Right.
What's the first thing you try to establish? Is it just trying to figure out where your team is fundamentally? Is it trying to, like you were saying earlier, psychoanalyze an entire group of kids? Where do you start?
Well, I think the psychoanalyze part, I've already made that pretty clear. I'm psychoanalyzing everybody all the time. And it's body language, and a lot of it is unspoken.
Okay.
What's the confidence level of this group? Sometimes they're young, but they're very confident. We can come out here and we can do things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I had the opportunity to have people around me as co-coaches. I'd like to call them co-coaches, assistants or whatever, but who complimented me very well. I mean, Dennis West was with me for years, and I thought we complemented each other very well.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Wayne King, who was my first assistant way back. Again, you guys say you don't remember Joe well, so you probably don't remember Wayne either, but Lauren King's dad.
Okay, I know
Okay.
Lauren.
He was my first assistant. And again, I think he complimented me the other way, whereas a lot of people see me as being fairly laid back. But there are cases, especially when I'm coaching, where I'm not real laid back, but he was uber laid back. And I remember you mentioned that 97 team who won the district, and we're playing in the district final game at Northwest. And it's in the 7th inning. Top of the 7th, I think, and we're bottom of the, I can't remember if we were home or visitor, but I'm just pacing up and down the dugout, up and down. And he looks at me and says, "Will you sit down?" "No, Wayne, I will not. I will continue to pace this dugout." But that's the way he was. I mean, the biggest moment in the history of the program, and I'm pacing, he's sitting back there saying, "Well, will you just please sit down?" And then, again, they both complimented me, but just very different ways.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I answered your question or not. I kind of
No. That's good. So, I mean, what would you suggest to some younger coaches that are just they have their 8-year-old that they're starting out with, and maybe they're not a psychologist or a psychological trained like you are.
Well, it's kind of hard to psychoanalyze an 8-year-old. But,
well,
I have to do that on a daily basis.
Would you say like just trying to get to know your players as quickly as possible?
Yeah, and a lot of times as far as skill level, I mean, you can figure that out pretty quick with an 8-year-old. I guess this leads me into a story. When my son started playing baseball, he was 4 years old. And my late wife came home. She said, "PJ's going to play baseball." It's okay, great. And you're going to coach him. Okay, you understand I coach varsity. "Oh, it'll be all right." That's the way she goes. "Oh, it'll be all right." Okay. So I get all these kids, none of whom have been in school yet. So they're 4 and 5-year-olds, don't even know the concept, line up, whatever. And this was before I was an elementary principal, so I mean, I'm really out of my element here. So it was fortunate that I did have her who was a kindergarten teacher, so I could instill some of those crisscross applesauce sort of things, But I think it just started out with, we're all starting from ground zero here, so we're just going to learn the game fundamentally. And probably the hardest coaching I've ever done was D-ball. You're teaching them to pitch, you're teaching them to run bases, you're teaching the catchers how to attempt to throw somebody out, although that never happens. Just all these different things going on. And plus, you're playing these teams who are living vicariously through their kids. These other coaches who, and sub D, they would put the kid in the batter's box and purposely angle him toward third base because they knew the third baseman couldn't throw across the diamond to get the out. Or we ground back to the pitcher, and the pitcher runs the ball to first base and tags the base instead of throwing it. And it just really frustrates me because you're not teaching the kid anything. But so I guess where I started with 4 and 5-year-olds is we're just all going to do the same things because I don't know where we are. And then they kind of separate themselves out there.
Mm-hmm.
In education, they call it differentiation of instruction, but same sort of idea, I guess.
So at what age do you think it becomes like competitive? Because that's my son's just now starting to get to the competitive side. And I think a lot of parents kind of don't know where that starts. So like half of our parents will be dying to win, and then the other half just want everybody to play.
And again, that's a loaded question. When does it become competitive for the adults or the kids?
Yeah.
Because it becomes competitive for the adults day one.
Immediately.
Yeah.
You know, we're not supposed to keep score in sub D, but everyone knew who won and lost. For the kid, how old is your son?
He just turned 9.
I'd say you're getting there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we started that last year.
Yeah, they start the quote-unquote travel teams, which this day and age are glorified, kind of knothole teams.
Yeah.
It's just daddy wants his own team, so he's going to call it a travel team and get everyone together. But, I think they start those at U8, so round about that time. Kids really understand, I think, just, again, being around elementary kids a lot. I think they really understand the concept of I'm better than you right around that age, and I'm going to beat you.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to watch a sporting event that's not competitive, even though I know you're just trying to teach them the basics and stuff, but you're constantly wanting them to try to win. And like some kids, I feel they don't have that kind of competitive fire in them.
Yeah.
And I don't ever try to like instill that in anybody's kid, but except my own kid.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
I think there's something going on that's generational almost. There seems to be like a little bit of less fire in kids.
Oh, that is a fact. That's an absolute fact. I mean, we don't. I mean, even high school kids, and I spent this year doing Hillsborough basketball games on the radio, so I watched a lot of high school basketball.
Uh-huh.
I mean, even those kids, when they lose, I mean, it's whatever.
that drives me insane.
Yeah. It bothers me a lot too. My brother is a freshman this year playing basketball on the freshman and JV teams, and that
I watched him play. I think he has that. I think
he does. But I would hate to quote Lance Stevenson, but I'm going to.
Oh my God!
You got to play with a little bit of FU in you. I tell him that a lot. Like, TJ, you're not in there to help people up and pat people on the back. Like, you need a little bit of go after it a little bit. So, and I think he's getting there.
Right. But I will say this, and it's a difference between sports. In that sport, yes. In baseball, I want my team to be here.
Yeah, it's
I
different.
want to be
in
too
baseball.
high. I don't want to be too low. We're just because it's really a game of failure.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to fail a whole lot.
Yeah.
If you can't deal with failure, it's the wrong sport for you.
Okay, then I need to ask you about the 2010 team.
Well, the 2010 team didn't fail a whole lot there till the end. Then we had a big failure, but
Yeah, big time.
When you were talking about confidence, I feel like that team had overconfidence to a degree. A lot of us did.
I wouldn't dispute that.
And I think I'll even say me, thought we were better than what we were. Me personally, not as the team. I think we were a really good team, but I think we had expectations that were unrealistic.
So what were the expectations? Because I don't know if I was privy to them,
Well,
other than what
I mean-
I had said. But
I felt like we all thought we were going to go deep in the tournament. I didn't think we were going to lose the first game.
well, neither did I.
I don't think anybody did.
But
Speaking of, check out this blast from the past up here.
look at that guy.
Look at
A
these.
little less
look at,
hairy on the face.
Look at these skinny cats.
That's Dallas in the back here.
I don't even recognize myself back there.
Ah, the good old days.
The good old days. Absolutely.
That 2010 team, I made special for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was my last one, but I always go back to the year before, 7-15. Now, I don't know exactly how, and I can't speak because maybe that's where I failed in my psychoanalyzation of you all, but I don't know how you could go 7-15 one year and be overconfident the next, but
That's true too.
maybe our overconfidence grew as our season went along. That could be, but certainly having Huntington come and beat you on your home field is something you didn't anticipate. I didn't anticipate,
Correct.
or
Yeah.
anyone. But
I took that L too. I was pitching. That was the saddest day of my life.
well, again, there was a lot of things that went on that day that, and it's not like we got blown out. I mean, it was a close
Yeah.
game, but baseball is one of those. Again, I'll get back to the differences between sports. I mean, you can look at a basketball roster, stats, and I can tell you who's going to win that game with accuracy 95% of the time, just by looking at the stats and who starts and who plays, how many minutes. And baseball,
Are you a betting man then? I'd be taking that to the casino then.
well, they frown upon betting on high school sports. But, baseball, on the other hand, I mean, okay, so I put Brad here on the mound. Now who do I put at third? Now who brings someone into third? Now who moves to that position? I mean, the dominoes start. You never have your 9 best players in their best position on any day at the high school level. Now, obviously, you get into the major leagues, that's a whole different thing. You have a whole pitching staff and whatever. Even at maybe like Legion Ball or something, you had pitchers only and all that. But high school baseball, I mean, there are just, again, so many different computations of lineups and where people need to go and play, and it's very difficult, more difficult than people realize unless they've done it, I think.
I wanted to ask you about what's going on with the Astros right now. I don't know how they can, Manfred in particular, cannot punish those guys.
He's protecting them even. You're not even allowed to throw at them.
There's got to be some extra part of the story that we're not hearing or something.
Well, he gave the players immunity because they told them what happened.
Yeah, we had a plea bargain here,
Yeah.
basically.
I mean, that's a big-time plea bargain.
So, but, okay, you sit yourself in Rob Manfred's seat. What do you do?
I mean, I'm not going to pass on suspending these guys. I mean, what incentive is there to not cheat at this point?
Well, there's that, but okay, so you have all 25 of these guys had some, well, maybe not the pitchers, but the ones who were hitters over the course of the season, they all benefited at some point from this whole banging on the garbage can thing.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to take, we have a 10-man pitching staff, so you take 15 guys and suspend all of them? Are you going to bring up the AAA team at Houston and just fill these guys in for? And at what point does the suspension become rigid enough? I mean, Pete Rose gets a lifetime ban, and you hear different things on that. Well, it's not the same thing. Well, kind of is to me.
To me, it's worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worse.
I mean, I think worse of the guys on steroids than I do Pete Rose, really.
Yeah.
And these guys go to another level on that, because even on steroids, you still have to hit the ball.
Yeah.
And I guess with this, you still have to hit the ball too, but I know what pitch is coming in, so my odds of hitting the ball are much, better.
Yeah, this is worse than steroids. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just flat out stealing the World Series.
But it's just a piece of metal, right?
All right, just
Yeah.
just a piece of metal. Yeah, no big deal.
Well, the commissioner should be fired for that
Yeah,
comment
he
alone.
Absolutely.
So what would I do? I mean, I don't know. Again, it's maybe you suspend the players, but on a staggered basis. Okay, you 5 are suspended for these number of games, and those 5 come back, and 5 more go out. And
I would be okay with that. Because, like you said, you can't suspend the whole team. They would just lose every game.
Why not, though? I mean, 2 years ago, they were basically a AAA team.
That's true.
I mean, they were terrible a couple years ago. So,
and they were terrible for several years.
Yeah.
yeah. So, no, I don't care if they have a AAA team playing on the Major League team. The Reds have had that for who knows how long.
I mean, they outlawed the Black Sox. How is this? This is kind of worse. I mean, the Black Sox gave up a World Series, but these guys stole one.
True. The inverse of Black Sox.
White Sox.
Yeah, the White Sox.
I don't know. It's a hard question, and like I said, the piece of metal comment, I'd have fired him on that
Yeah.
alone. But I don't know what you do with the players.
I don't think you protect them from beanballs. I think every one of them's got to eat a beanball this year.
Well, if you don't think players and coaches are going crazy right now that those guys aren't getting suspended, wait till one of those Altuve takes one in the chin, and then that pitcher gets suspended for 10 games.
Yeah.
But yet the Reds and the Pirates can have a beanball war, and no one cares about that.
Right.
We're not going to protect anybody there, but
Yeah.
here, again, that's beyond.
I mean, maybe Manfred is playing the, controversy is good card, and he's wanting this to drag out and wanting the beanballs and wanting further controversy down the line. I'm trying to be a big time apologist.
Now
for
you're getting into manipulation, right?
True. I mean, the NBA loves it when there's, they give those guys how many opportunities with technical fouls. You can have like 15 technical fouls before you're actually suspended. It's like, why? You let him do all that, and just now he's going to get a suspension? So, and those guys are really liberal with him too.
I cherish the beanball, and it sucks that the Astros are going to be protected from it now.
So, Brad, on that question,
Uh-oh.
I never told you to, but did you ever bean someone on purpose?
In high school baseball, I don't. If I did, I don't remember.
I know one guy you hit multiple times.
I hit Bundy 3 times on accident. But that was because I was overthrowing. But I honestly can't remember if I wanted to hit the entire Manchester team that game. They were yelling at me the whole game. But no, I don't think I intentionally did. And I never aimed for the head when I did do it. It was always in the ribs.
You're throwing at me. I'm just turning my back and
Yeah,
taking it and walking to first
You
base with
taught
a
half
smile
our
on
team
my
to
face.
just to wear them.
I was very proud of that. If you can't hit it, you might as well be hit.
Any way possible. Get yourself on base.
Actually, Bundy was the one that kind of taught me that. He's like, if you're going to throw inside, I'm wearing it, man.
He had no choice on mine. I was throwing as hard as I could, and they just found his back every time.
Well, I guarantee he didn't do much in the way of trying to get out of it.
Oh, it didn't look like it even hurt him. He just walked down.
Yep.
So, where do your loyalties lie in high school sports? Because I know you went to Eastern, right?
That's a good question.
Well, I don't tell many people that, but yes, I did.
Because if I was to ever bean someone, it would have been a player wearing red. I hated that team the entire time we were in high school.
And that's fair. I mean, they were kind of our main rivals, I guess, as far as our division. But where do my loyalties lie? I mean, I'll always be partial to Lynchburg Clay.
Right answer.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't know that I have loyalties. I'd say I do Hillsburg games on the radio, but that's more, I'm not biased there. Yeah, I just say what I saw, really. I mean, I just enjoy watching, really.
Yeah.
So what is your radio station where you call games?
WSRW,
Okay. And so you call every Hillsborough game
most of them.
or all home games?
We did 14 boys games and 5 girls games, I think,
Gotcha.
and then all the football games.
So are you enjoying that role?
Yeah. Honestly, I get kind of bored with following the same team. I've worked off and on in radio for 30 years, but working for like C103, I mean, you get to see different teams on a nightly basis, so it's a little more fresh. I guess with Hillsborough, you get to know those kids pretty well, so there's that, but it can be a little monotonous, I guess,
Yeah.
when they're not strong. I mean, there's some times they played well and it was not good to watch, and then sometimes a little frustrating to watch, just again as a spectator. But
It's got to be hard to be a commenter if like the team is just terrible, which I don't know if you've experienced a team that's just terrible, but trying to be enthused about a team that's losing every single game.
well, you bring up Manchester, and I don't mean any slight to anybody when I talk about this, but I did 5 games of Manchester football one year. We did a split schedule with Western Brown Manchester. And one of the Manchester football games I called was against Grove City Christian, who won 96-20.
Oh my God.
So right before halftime, running back breaks through the line, and I mean, there's no one within 30 yards. I mean, he's doing the old 40, 30, 20, and all of a sudden he just veers out of bounds. So how do you make that sound good? I mean, I've literally said, there's no one within 30 yards of him. He's going down the field, and he veers out of bounds.
No.
So, yeah, they could have had triple digits that night. They decided not to, I guess.
Oh, man, I would have had to. I don't think I could have not taken the triple.
The scoreboard wouldn't have handled it.
They only got room for 2 digits. So is it just football and basketball, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Different points in my quote-unquote career, I called one baseball game, and I called a couple volleyball games. Volleyball play-by-play on the radio, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you've never really played the sport, or it's interesting.
Seems like that would be very fast-paced and hard
Mhm.
to keep up with a little.
Yeah, when you're looking down at the roster and up, and balls already went to 2 other people, and again, very, very interesting.
Yeah, that to me would be the most difficult part, is just figuring out who you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's the advantage of having Hillsborough all year. You know, you get to know those kids, and really
Yeah.
don't need a roster for them. You know them by their look and their number, and
You still got to figure out the other team.
yeah.
Right?
Except for you still had to look at numbers when the girls had a set of twins, so
Yeah.
had to look at their numbers. But other than that, I knew them too.
So we wanted to ask about PJ playing esports now.
Yeah.
That's a new one. I didn't know even that was a thing until I saw something on Facebook or wherever I saw it about him getting, accepted at Shawnee to play there. So,
Yeah.
That had to be awesome.
Yeah.
Get a
Yeah.
scholarship.
It's the world is a changing, and obviously I love my son very dearly. But the way I always described him, and I would say this to his face, he has outstanding hand-eye coordination. Has always hit a baseball well from the time he was 4 years old. But the rest of his body is a big slow twitch muscle. So if it comes to running anywhere, we're going to get there pretty slow. We can catch it very well. We can hit it very well. So he's in his element. I mean, the hand-eye thing is he's very good. Just trying to learn this whole e-sport culture, and seems kind of lackadaisical sort of, we're going to schedule matches. They may happen, they may not. People may show up, they may not.
Oh no!
I mean, it's like you got to log in, and if you don't log in within 15 minutes, the match is a forfeit, and so that's happened several times. And one of the UC Rocket League teams, they couldn't play on Saturdays. They didn't tell anyone, so they were scheduled to play last Saturday and didn't show up. And then our coach got a hold of their coach through Discord and Well, we don't play on Saturdays. Well, you could have told someone that. Well, you just take a forfeit. Hope you like all your forfeits. They start smack talking each other, and it's just a different thing. But it's interesting.
That's a new one. Do
Yeah.
you see that growing, or do you see it always as kind of a niche?
Oh, no,
thing?
I absolutely think it will grow.
Really?
I think it's just a niche here because I seen today that the Super Bowl had a little over 100 million views, and the League of Legends Championship had 200 million.
Really?
If you go on Twitch at any given time, there's like 30,000 people watching one person play a video game.
Yeah.
But they're not like in a league on that, are they?
There's that real popular one, that Ninja. He's one of the richest guys in America because of video games.
Yeah, they're winning like
competitions and
$3 million a tournament and stuff.
Okay, so I took PJ last year to the Rocket League Championship Series, season whatever it was. I don't even know, but we're sitting in the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, where the New Jersey Devils play hockey and Seton Hall plays basketball. And there are 10,000 people, and we're sitting there watching the big TV on the scoreboard. And watching him watch that is like watching me watch the Bengals. I mean, wrong team scores. He's got his hand in his pulling his hair, and these kids are like 15, 18. I think the oldest one was 22. And I looked at him once. I said, "PJ, you're retirement age in this game here, and you're 18." I mean, he's going around getting autographs, and like I said, when the kid's 15 years old, he's running up the concourses of the arena acting like 15-year-olds do, and I'm like, I don't get all this. It makes no sense to me.
It's new. It's
So I said
hard.
to him, I'm glad you love it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think it's just hard for the older generations to really get it. I mean, I played a lot of video games too, but I never thought it could be a career, a very wealthy career.
Oh, yeah.
see, but it's been happening a lot longer than you think it has. When Halo first came out, that was 2002, 2003. They were doing this, doing the competitions.
Well, the kid won the Fortnite tournament and got $1 million or something.
Yeah.
And he was 15, I think.
Yeah, he was really young. So do they get like uniforms?
Image search it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he has a uniform, and I mean, they basically most of the time they just go to their own little room and play. Sometimes they'll go to what are called LAN tournaments, local area network. So you have to go someplace, but
PJ.
usually it's just online. And
Fiscus.
you know, there are interesting things with that too, because it depends on your internet connection, and there are West servers and there are East servers. And PJ said, well, we played Boise State once and we were on the West server. That's why they beat us, because our lag time was too slow.
Oh, no.
And it's like, I don't even, that's from his signing, I think.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, he's got to be the first graduate from Lynchburg to get an esports.
Yep. And they just started an esports team.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Playing against whom? Do others?
Other high schools.
I know CNE has
does
one.
the league, the SHAC have it?
No.
Okay, they're just whoever they can play at this point, probably. Okay.
Yeah. Playing League of Legends.
Hmm.
They were supposed to play Fortnite, but something happened with that, and now they're playing League of Legends. And Mrs. Arnett's the coach.
It'll be interesting to see over the next 10, 20 years, like kind of what it grows into.
I mean, it could be the biggest sport.
Yeah, we don't want to tackle people anymore in football, so.
Well, it was kind of funny. I mean, PJ talks about these different people he plays against, and interestingly enough, Akron, they've been national champions in Rocket League for the last couple years, I think. But, I mean, he's hung out with these guys and talks about them, and they're professionals. I mean, they go to tournaments, they win money. Arizona has another good team, and he talks about those kids. He said, I hate this one kid. He calls me this and calls me that, and what does he say? He roasts me online, and I went, okay, whatever. But I was watching one night on TBS, and they had this E-League show, and they were showing the Rocket League championships, or the whatever the college version of that is. They have a name for it. I can't remember what it was. CRL championship or something. And I saw these guys he was talking about, and you could tell that they're smack talking each other, and it's like quote unquote real sports.
So these guys got a little bit of FU in them.
Oh yeah,
That's where it's all migrating to, is esports.
well, and it's true. They have rules, and then written rules that say there's only certain things you're allowed to say in the chat.
Oh, wow.
You can say GG, good game. And there's some other things, but it's very limited. Can't say a whole lot, lest it break out into esports anarchy. I don't know. Get esports coaches chest to chest, as is wont to happen on the baseball field sometimes.
What caused that? What I can't remember what was the story with
Rabbit.
that. Now you got to tell the story. Can you tell it?
Boy, I opened that door. Didn't I? Okay. So Ray Doss was on second base.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I remember it all now.
Yeah.
Rest his soul.
Yeah, rest Ray's soul, yes. Got picked off and just bowled over. Her at shortstop.
As he would.
Yeah, so, well, it was a bull in the china shop.
Yeah.
Bowled him over, and my opposing coach comes out, and their dugout is opposite of ours, so he has to walk across the field to get to the third base coaching box. And Ray's brother Ryan's pitching, and I don't know who started it. I would not make any bets on who started it. Could have been either one of them, honestly. But they start jawing back and forth, the opposing coach and Ryan. So I see this happening, and I walk out of the dugout, and I very politely say, if you would like to address my team, you need to address me. And then it went into something like, you all have been doing something since you got here, and then I got bumped, and then I bumped back, and kind of went off the rails from there. And then we were both put into our playpens for the rest of the day. But we came out victorious, which is the important part.
Yeah.
That is the main thing. Wasn't enough time to psychoanalyze in that situation. Had to get straight to bumping.
No, yeah, that's... I'm sure there are a lot of people psychoanalyzing us at that point. But I will say I was very... And I don't remember how I used to say it to my players, but basically, I have your back, and I need to show you I have your back. And you're not going to talk to my players without talking to me, or you're never going to talk to my players. It's not your job. So, I mean, had I not addressed that situation, I mean, that would have done you all a disservice,
Yeah.
I believe.
There's something about, a coach can tell his players, I got your back, but there's something, it's like a basketball coach picking up a technical foul when there's a 8-0 run against him or something, screaming at the ref, and he's wanting to get the technical foul.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about that just instantly, it's like a shot of adrenaline. You're like, okay, my guy's got me.
I think that's what it did for us that day. I mean,
Well,
we were...
Let me ask you this. I only saw my side of it. What was your side of it? First of all, I'm sure you guys are just totally blown away by this whole thing. You've probably never seen before.
Well, that was, kind of the unique part of it is, you're a pretty quiet guy.
Yeah.
And for something to get under your skin and for you to be that passionate about, something at that point in time was like jarring almost. I think from my perspective, I mean, during, a game, you got a million things going on, and so those finer details, I don't think a lot of us even really knew what was going on. So maybe a third of the team knew of, that kind of incident or whatever. But there had also been like some chirping going on, with that coach and the umpire and, what have you before that whole incident. And so, I mean, my own perspective, I don't know what yours was that, that we're kind of like transitioning between innings and, he walks all the way to our side of the field, which is odd anyway. Or was he the third base coach?
He was going to the third base coaching box, so he had a reason to be over
Okay,
there.
I guess that makes more sense then. Yeah, and then, I mean, for me, I just turned around and it was on. So
It motivated me. I was ready to charge the field behind you. I mean,
I'm glad you didn't.
well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't going to, but it kind of gave you that feeling that we got a leader that's taking charge of the situation.
Yeah.
Well, see, and as a coach, even though I kind of lost my head there, which I'll admit to this day, I shouldn't have done that. I should have been the bigger person. But at the same time, I was most proud of the fact that you all didn't lose your heads. You just kind of kept doing what you needed to do. And again, I won't mention names. I'm not going to mention names in any of this, but there were certain individuals there that could have very easily lost their heads.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised they didn't.
Several.
And didn't. So I took that as a victory, and maybe I did something right along the way, and instilling the fact that I've got you guys, you just do what you need to do.
And that honestly might have stopped it from escalating.
Mm-hmm.
I think it did anyway.
Probably
Because
so.
our whole team, a lot of us had an edge to us.
Yeah. Even some like Dallas over there had a quiet edge. It wasn't an overt edge.
Oh, he
Some-
had an edge.
Well, some were more overt than others.
Yeah. Yeah, my edge would come out very fast and very violently back in those days. Otherwise, it was really even.
And some were just out there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not mentioning any names.
Yeah. I guess we can make a abrupt jump over to our book. I thought the topic of journaling was kind of interesting. You know, in a lot of these books that we read, I'm like, you know, I'm listening to what's, you know, what the topic at hand is, but I'm also kind of searching for what is something from this book that I can, you know, like physically implement into my own life. And that one I thought was interesting as far as journaling, because I don't spend a lot of time, you know, looking at my own emotions and self. Like, you know, he described it as you're watching yourself like you would watch something on TV. And yeah, I don't do that. So I thought the aspect of journaling and kind of forcing yourself to study yourself was pretty interesting.
I think it would help with like understanding decisions you make strictly off emotion.
True. Is that something that you've done in the past, or you do?
I don't do a whole lot of journaling. I more reflective thinking sometimes.
Yeah.
But when you write something down, it becomes very tangible at that point. It's not like talking about it or thinking about it. I mean, now I put it on paper.
Yeah.
A lot of leadership conferences and things that you go to, and of course in my position I see a lot of those things, but it talks about putting it down on paper and listing goals, and we talked a lot about that as athletes. You know, I want to put personal goals down, I want to put team goals down, then they become very tangible. I'm not just thinking about it. I look at this paper all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I can adjust based upon what's going on. And then you mentioned, yeah, I'm looking at myself and in the mirror. Or I think you said it, Dallas. Now I can adjust based upon, well, here I was on this day, and this was the circumstance. Now I'm in the same circumstance. What was I thinking back then? And now how can I adjust that to make it better or a more favorable outcome? Or,
Mm-hmm.
When we were talking about like the kids that don't have that edge, do you think it has anything to do with like the mental health rise? Like, it seems like there's a lot of more mental, like depression and anxiety have gone way up, and I just feel like it's either a generational thing or it's just almost like a copycat thing.
Well, first of all, I don't think, in getting back, we kind of had this cyclical conversation about technology and different things. Technology has done a true disservice to the social aspect of society. Kids don't talk anymore. They text. I mean, they have Snapchat or whatever. They'd be in the same room Snapchatting and texting each other.
Yeah.
So the whole... I am curious as to what will happen down the road with things like job interviews and how those will morph into something different because I think they will, because you'll have a generation of people who will not have that skill set to sit across the table from someone interviewing them.
Yeah.
It might just be something you do online or something.
Could be.
Yeah, there was something in the news not too long ago. I forget which. It was a major company, like a major employer, that was having a difficult time hiring folks because they had very little skills with just face-to-face interaction. I wish I could. I mean, it was something like, a Kings Island or some place like that hires, thousands of people.
Well, and working with the public is, we are a society that I need my problem solved now. I need instant gratification. I need you to tell me what's going to happen right now. And if you don't have the skill set to look at someone and ensure them that you're going to deal with what they need, it may not be right now, but you'll eventually get what you need and be able to navigate all that. Again, it's an acquired skill, but you don't acquire it unless you practice it over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm successful in my current position because of all the coaching I did and dealing with all these different personalities and making sure they all meshed. And it really was a valuable training ground for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why you see a lot of former coaches ascend into educational leadership, because the skill sets are very similar.
Yeah.
What is it about history teachers in particular that makes them more inclined to be coaches?
I guess I'm probably going to devalue myself with this statement, but if you're going through college to get certified into teaching something, that's probably the easiest route to go, other than maybe being a phys ed teacher. Although phys ed teachers have to take kinesiology and science of movement and things like that, which can be a little bit involved. But really, history is remembering things.
It's not changing every day.
Well,
I
we
guess.
have all kinds of revisionist history, but
Yeah.
being able to put things into context, and I would guess probably the ease of the ultimate licensure goes more into that than anything, I guess.
That's interesting. You say it's not changing. Like I've wondered before if just how divided just watching the news is these days. Like what our current history lessons will be in the future. Like it's almost like does the white man tell a story or does the Indian tell the story kind of thing? To a lesser degree, but it'll be interesting in the future of who writes those stories. From whose vantage point does Donald Trump get written about?
Or does history even taught or exist? And here's where I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on. And I tell people this all the time.
We love tinfoil hats around here.
I've got one. I've got a big one. I am wholeheartedly of the belief that someone, and I don't know who this someone is, whether it's the government as a whole or are really cutting out the social studies, history, all those things. Because in the world of education, they always talk about, we're tested too much, we're teaching to the test, but they will take a test away, but it's always the social studies test that's taken away. Because how do you, and again, we kind of cycle back around to this manipulation thing, how do you best manipulate a populace? You manipulate a populace by them not really knowing what's going on or not knowing what happened before. So now you have a lot of people who think communism is a real swell idea, having no knowledge of the Soviet Union, or because they were never taught. And I'm not blaming these people. They were not taught this sort of thing.
So you're seeing the decline of teaching in that of those studies. Is that kind of what you're after? Wow.
And it will be there, but let's be honest, and I will be totally transparent with this statement. In education as it stands today, you put your greatest emphasis on where you're tested, where you're accountable. And people look at our report cards as schools, and we got these indicators, we did this well in these subjects, but those subjects are rarely, if ever, social studies subjects. They're reading, they're math, science to a certain extent, but the social studies exist in the high school testing a little bit, but even they've taken away, like the 4th grade social studies test was removed. Still exists at the 6th grade, but I mean, whenever one gets taken away, it's that one.
I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is scary.
And again, I really prided myself as a government teacher on teaching the mechanics of government. This is how it works. I don't want to discuss politics with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to discuss politics, you get your diploma, walk across the stage. We'll discuss politics. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
People who call for the abolition of the electoral college, for example. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a popular vote. It was never meant to be a popular vote. It's a state vote, is what it is.
Yeah.
Whoever wins the most states wins. And the founding fathers made it that way on purpose because the small states had to have as big a stake in the game as the large states did.
Yeah. Well, we would never see a politician anywhere near, I mean, even, these rural towns that you see them out having little town halls, you would never see a politician within 100 miles of little places like that.
Does Bill Clinton get elected under a popular vote? Probably not. He's from Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
You get him from the coast, East Coast, West Coast. That's it.
Yeah. We could get rid of caucuses anytime now, though. Oh, my goodness. What a disaster.
Well, that's a whole different kettle of fish,
yeah,
too.
It is. But
Now I've gone off the rails. I hope none of your listeners would.
if you haven't noticed, there are no rails on this podcast. We go anywhere the conversation takes us.
But yes, the social studies need to be more prominent. I mean, that was the whole idea behind public schools. It was to teach how the government worked and how to be a citizen. It wasn't to teach reading and math. It was to be productive in society, which I guess that's part of it. But for the most part, at the very beginning, it was, we want to teach you the United States way of life. Government, what it means, how it works. So now we've kind of put that off to the side. And now you have all these different ideas coming in. And I have no problem with different ideas. It's the whole thing of, it's a marketplace of ideas. That's a whole quote from the Magruder's government book. We live in a marketplace of ideas. Everyone has to be able to present their idea. And people talk about freedom of speech. Well, everyone has freedom of speech. The government's not shutting anybody down. That's the whole concept. Well, I don't like what you say, so therefore you can't say it, or you don't like what I say, and you're going to infringe upon my freedom of speech. Well, that's not how it works. I mean, the people have been allowed to say some awful, horrible things, and it's legal under our current system.
So you have a magic wand, and
I'm world czar. So.
yeah, you're the U.S. czar at least. And I had the same conversation with my mom when she was on the podcast, another high school teacher. But you have a magic wand, and you can put your plan into place of how we improve education. I don't want to hear like the whole.
The layman's example of how I improve education.
There's obviously a million things you can do, but what's your start, I guess?
I guess I've already said it. Probably getting back to a more balanced set of courses. You should be able in the elementary to spend as much time on social studies as you do reading and math and science. I mean, there should be an equality to all that. Mm-hmm. Again, you have a whole I think at this point you have a whole generation of students who don't have a working knowledge of a lot of things, because now we are kind of placed on this track of what we need to do because of that accountability piece.
I think a lot of people wish they had more sort of like life skill lessons in school. Does Lynchburg still have in Fayetteville or wherever, still have like shop courses and things like that? I know that's one of the quickest ones that schools.
We didn't have shop when we were in school.
Well, we had like ag. It was part of ag.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't, yeah, you're right. It wasn't a dedicated like shop class.
Well, I mean, if you want hands-on, carpentry or something along that line, you have to go to the CTC to do that.
Vocational school, yeah, true.
I mean, the shop, quote unquote, has gone more the computer-aided design track.
The technology class.
Yeah. Which has its value.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish schools push the trades as hard as they push college.
Oh, without, there's a lot of money to be made in the trades.
Yeah, more so oftentimes than going the college route.
The buzzwords now are college and career ready. I don't know. I mean, I haven't been in a high school personally for several years, so I don't know how the balance there works. I know there are like 9 different tracks to a diploma now. Some of them are quote unquote college ready. Some of them are more geared toward a trade situation where you can get a certificate in a certain trade and that be basically your diploma.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they've been responsive to that sort of thing more so than maybe, let's say, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, where you had no child left behind and everyone was supposed to be on college track and taking out student loans. And I mean, honestly, you get into a good trade and you make a good amount of money. How far are you ahead of that kid who went to college and now is $50,000 in debt and student loans?
Yeah, conservatively.
Yeah, conservatively.
You're spending years trying to catch up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even as a doctor, I guess eventually you catch up, but it takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I wish
absolutely.
I would have been pushed towards the trade school. I mean, part of it's probably I wasn't looking, but I wish I would have understood more like what was out there.
And you fell into that no child left behind piece.
Yeah.
Really. That was your generation.
Absolutely.
It seemed like it was college or bust when I was in school.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Yeah, and I think you said it when we were, I don't know which episode it was. Like, what's the first thing that, they read when you're coming across the aisle when you graduate? Is what scholarships do you have? Or where are you going?
Well, you got scholarships or you're in the military.
Yeah.
There's really nothing in between there.
Yeah.
According to what you say at graduation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we didn't hit too much on the book itself, but I think the conversation that we did have was better served than the book. In the future, I know this was kind of a scramble episode, but in the future, if you find a book, and we're actually going to post our list of books that we have that we're wanting to get to and haven't yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find something on that list or something that you like yourself and want to come back and talk on, or even if it's not a book, please, by all means, reach out and come back on. So it was great having you on today.
Well, I enjoyed it immensely.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thanks, guys. So next week, remember what we have next week?
The end of the world.
Oh, we do at the end of the world next week. We have Kyle Dickerson coming on next week. We're going to talk about the book of Revelation, and we're reading a couple books that talk about what current events are going on that tie themselves in directly with what the book of Revelation talks about. So that'll be an interesting one, I think. All right, that's all for this week. Go learn something this week, guys.